A new report, early voting numbers are actually looking good for Democrats. To pollster Frank Luntz on what this means for the GOP come November 4th. We should caution here that in Colorado and Georgia and among a couple of other places, the Democrats are getting out their base, or better than they thought, right? Explain.
Well, what happens is that you can do statistical analysis based on the turnout in 2010 and 2012 to compare where people are voting. Now, it's not an exact science, but you can get an idea of what type of people are coming out to vote. And, Neil, it's very inconsistent. In certain states, such as Louisiana and Arkansas, the turnout in Republican areas has actually been higher than what people expected. But in some states, like Wisconsin and Illinois, the turnout among Democrats is actually higher than people expected. There's certain trends that you look for. What is the percentage of the African-American vote? And there's a certain rule here. 90% of elections, African-Americans vote Democrat 90% of the time. So the higher the black turnout, the higher the Democratic vote. And in a state like Georgia, it's running closer to a presidential election level, which is the very low 30s, than it is an off-year election, which would be somewhere in the mid-20s. So Republicans should be much more cautious about the prospects on Tuesday than they have been in what we've been watching over the last couple of weeks.
Well, Georgia's one of the close contests, Colorado as well. If those two states tip to the Democrat, then the strategy becomes a little bit more difficult and the leap a little bit more formidable for Republicans to take the Senate, right?
That's correct. And in fact, I'm watching 3 states where the polls close very early. New Hampshire, where I will tell you that up until 24 hours ago, I thought that Jeanne Shaheen would be elected, that she would be reelected senator. Now, that state is way too close to call. I don't care that there's a poll that shows Brown down 6. Everything that I see that the Republican, Scott Brown, has been doing better day by day. And the other state that closes very early is North Carolina, and that one is absolutely dead even. There's not even a slice of paper between the two candidates. Watch Georgia, North Carolina, and New Hampshire. We'll know by about 8:30 or 9 o'clock the indication of what's going to happen. But, Neil, there are 3 states that are going to be out. I think Georgia, in the end, will not give a majority to any of the candidates, which means a runoff in January. You've got Louisiana that'll have a runoff in December.
Sorry, to get a runoff, you have to get 50%, or to prevent it, get 50% of the vote. So you're saying, even with what we're learning right now, neither candidate looks likely to do that?
Correct. Michelle Nunn, I believe, has a lead at this point.
Right.
But I don't think it's enough of a lead for her to get a majority. And Alaska, where the Democrats are putting in a tremendous effort to turn out the vote in very obscure areas, I don't think we're going to know who's going to control the Senate for days, let alone hours after the polls close.
Well, that's going to be weird for the lame duck session, right? I mean, like, who's on first?
And here's the deal. If Georgia turns out to be the deciding state, they don't vote until January 7th, which means the Senate will have already met and voted to organize, and they may have to reorganize only hours later. Chaos, Neil. It's just chaos.
Well, this is what makes you wicked smart, my friend. Always appreciate the insight. I learn something every single time I talk to him. Frank